Welcome, traveler of the stars. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story. Captain Elena Rostova stood on the bridge of the UNSC Audacity, her fingers white-knuckled on the command chair's armrests. Outside the viewport, space twisted in ways that defied physics. Colors that had no names, geometries that made the eyes ache, and a silence so profound it felt like a physical pressure against the hull. "Status report," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Chief Engineer Kenji Tanaka's face appeared on the view screen, sweat beading on his brow despite the ship's optimal temperature control. "The dimensional drive, it worked, Captain. But the energy signature is broadcasting our position like a supernova. We've definitely been noticed." "Noticed by whom?" Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer. For 3 centuries, humanity had watched from the sidelines as the galactic community flourished. The Vexxar Empire, a civilization so ancient they had forgotten their own origins, had established the Concordance, a coalition of over 700 species that governed the Milky Way with an iron fist wrapped in silk gloves. They had observed humanity from afar, dismissing them as primitive, chaotic, and ultimately irrelevant. Until now, the dimensional drive was humanity's greatest achievement, a technology that shouldn't have worked according to Vexxar physics, a field of study they considered complete and perfect. It was born not from careful calculation but from human intuition, from dreams and nightmares, from the kind of illogical creativity that the Vexxar had bred out of their own species millennia ago. "We're being hailed," Communications Officer Janet Petrovich announced, her voice tight with tension. "It's the Vexxar." "On screen," Elena commanded. The face that appeared was both beautiful and terrifying. Angular features that seemed carved from obsidian, eyes that glowed with internal light, and a mouth that never quite smiled. The Vexxar were humanoid in shape only, their bodies composed of a crystalline structure that could reconfigure at will, their minds networked into a collective consciousness that valued logic above all else. "Human vessel," the Vexxar spoke, its voice a symphony of harmonics that resonated in the bones. "You have violated Concordance law by traversing restricted space. You will surrender your vessel and technology for analysis." Elena stood, her posture rigid. "We are representatives of the United Nations Space Command, operating under the authority of Earth's unified government. We recognize no Concordance jurisdiction in this sector." The Vexxar's features shifted slightly, a sign of what might have been confusion in another species. "Your authority is irrelevant. Your technology is an anomaly that threatens the stability of established cosmic principles. You will comply." "We've traveled too far and sacrificed too much to turn back now," Elena replied, her voice gaining strength. "We seek peaceful relations with all species, but we will not be intimidated." The Vexxar's eyes brightened. "Intimidation is a primitive concept. We simply state facts. Your dimensional drive operates on principles that could unravel the fabric of space-time if not properly controlled. Your species lacks the wisdom to wield such power." Before Elena could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Multiple contacts, Captain," Tactical Officer Marcus Chen shouted from his station. "Vexxar warships emerging from quantum space all around us." Elena's eyes widened as she turned to the main view screen. One by one, massive vessels materialized around the Audacity, their hulls shifting and reconfiguring like living creatures. Each was larger than a city, armed with weapons that could crack planets. "They were waiting for us," Elena whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "They knew we would try this." The Vexxar on the screen spoke again, its voice unchanged. "Your defiance is illogical. Surrender now, and your crew will be spared. Resist, and you will be eliminated as a cosmic anomaly." Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. Jana, with her jaw set in determination. Marcus already calculating tactical options. Kenji preparing the engines for impossible maneuvers. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be a one-way trip. They had all said their goodbyes, left letters for loved ones they might never see again. "Humanity has been underestimated for a long time," Elena said, her voice carrying across the bridge. "They see our chaos, our emotions, our unpredictability as weaknesses. They don't understand that these are our strengths." She turned back to the view screen. "We will not surrender. Then you will be eliminated," the Vexxar stated simply. The first shot struck the Audacity's shields, sending a shudder through the entire ship. Red alert lights flashed, casting the bridge in an eerie glow. Shields at 80%, Marcus reported. They're testing our defenses. Kenji, I need options. Elena commanded, strapping herself into her command chair. We can't outrun them in conventional space. Kenji's voice came through the intercom. But the dimensional drive, it's still charged. We could make another jump, but it would be uncalculated, completely random. We could end up anywhere or nowhere. Do it, Elena ordered without hesitation. Captain, the coordinates. Pick a direction, any direction, Elena interrupted. Just get us out of here. Another blast shook the ship, more powerful than the first. Shields at 50%, Marcus yelled. They're not playing around anymore. Dimensional drive charging, Kenji announced. Jump in 10, 9. The Vexxar ships moved in, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. 8, 7. Elena closed her eyes, thinking of Earth, of the blue oceans and green forests, of the people who had placed their faith in this mission. 6, 5. She thought of her daughter, grown now with children of her own, and the promise she had made to return home. 4, 3. The bridge was rocked by another explosion, this time closer. Sparks flew from a nearby console. 2, 1. For a moment it seemed as if time itself had stopped. The Vexxar weapons fired in unison, a barrage of energy that should have vaporized the Audacity instantly. Jump! The universe twisted again, colors and shapes bleeding into one another. The Audacity vanished from normal space, leaving behind only the echo of its passage and the Vexxar fleet, hovering in stunned silence. High Commander Zeller of the Vexxar fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Logic, his crystalline form reflecting the tactical displays that surrounded him. The human vessel had disappeared, not through conventional means, not through quantum space, but through something else entirely. Analysis, Zeller commanded, his voice resonating through the command center. Sub-Commander, Vex approached, her form shifting slightly with agitation. The energy signature matches nothing in our databases. The humans have accessed a dimension that should not exist according to our understanding of cosmic physics. Impossible, Zeller stated. Our understanding is complete. The humans must have found a loophole, an anomaly they are exploiting without comprehension. Their ship was primitive by our standards, Vex countered, yet it withstood 3 direct hits from our plasma arrays. Their shields operated on principles we cannot decipher. Zeller considered this information, his mind processing millions of variables in seconds. The humans were an anomaly, a species that had developed in isolation yet somehow surpassed the technological achievements of civilizations that had spanned millennia. Dispatch probes to trace their trajectory, Solar ordered, and prepare the fleet for pursuit. These humans cannot be allowed to spread their dangerous technology throughout the galaxy. What is our primary objective? Vex asked. Zeller turned to face the viewscreen, where the last remnants of the dimensional tier were fading into normal space. To understand, to control, to eliminate if necessary. The Vexxar fleet moved as one, their perfect coordination a testament to their collective consciousness. They were the guardians of galactic stability, the enforcers of cosmic order. They had encountered thousands of species, uplifted some, contained others, and eliminated those that threatened the balance of power. But they had never encountered anything quite like humanity. Meanwhile, aboard the Audacity, the crew struggled to assess their situation. The dimensional jump had been violent, chaotic. Nothing like the controlled transition they had planned. Alarms blared throughout the ship, warning of hull breaches, power failures, and systems going offline one by one. Damage report, Elena shouted, pulling herself from the floor where she had been thrown by the turbulence. Multiple hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, Marcus reported, his voice strained. Life support failing in 30% of the ship. Main power is offline. We're running on emergency reserves. Kenji, status of the dimensional drive? Elena asked, making her way to the engineering station. Completely fried, Captain. Kenji's voice came through the intercom, filled with frustration. The energy feedback was too much for the regulators. We're dead in the water. Elena looked around the bridge, her heart sinking. They had escaped the Vexxar, but at what cost? They were stranded in an unknown region of space, with a damaged ship and no way to call for help. Jana, any luck identifying our position? Elena asked. Jana shook her head, her face pale. The star charts don't match anything in our database. We're I don't know where we are, Captain. Elena walked to the main view screen, which now showed a panorama of unfamiliar stars. In the distance, a nebula glowed with colors she had never seen. Purples and golds mingling in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, as if painted by an artist's hand. We knew the risks, Elena said softly, more to herself than to her crew. We knew this might happen. We can still send a message, Janice suggested. A narrow-band beam directed toward Earth. It might take centuries to get there, but it's better than nothing, Elena agreed. Prepare the message. Include everything we've learned about the Vexxar, about their technology, their weaknesses, and include our coordinates as best as you can determine them. And what about us, Captain? Marcus asked, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Lena looked at her crew, at the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. They were explorers, scientists, and soldiers, but above all, they were human, and humans had a way of surviving against impossible odds. We do what humans have always done, Elena said, her voice gaining strength. We adapt, we endure, we find a way. As if in response to her words, a new alarm sounded, softer, more insistent than the others. Captain, I'm picking up a signal, Yana announced, her fingers flying across her console. It's not Vexxar, it's something else. On screen, Elena commanded. The view screen shifted, showing a series of symbols and patterns that meant nothing to the human crew. But as they watched, the patterns began to resolve into something recognizable, a mathematical sequence, then a chemical formula, then a simple diagram of a hydrogen atom. It's a first contact protocol, Elena whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. They're trying to communicate with us. Who are they? Marcus asked. I don't know, Elena admitted, but they're not Vexxar. And right now, that's good enough for me. The crew worked frantically to establish communication, using the universal language of mathematics and science. Hours passed, then days, as the Audacity drifted in space, its systems failing one by one. But with each exchange of information, the humans learned more about their mysterious benefactors. They called themselves the silicates, beings of living crystal who had evolved in the heart of a neutron star, who perceived the universe through vibrations and resonances rather than light and sound. They had observed the Vexxar for eons, watching as the perfect civilization spread across the galaxy, imposing their order on countless species. We have waited long for a counterbalance. The silicates communicated through a series of complex harmonics that the ship's computer translated into text. The Vexxar believe their logic is absolute, their understanding complete. They have forgotten that the universe is infinite, with infinite possibilities. Why help us? Elena asked through the communication interface. We're strangers to you, because you possess something the Vexxar lost long ago, the silicates replied. The capacity for illogical action, the ability to create without understanding, to leap without looking, to find solutions where none should exist. We call it chaos. You call it creativity. Elena thought of the dimensional drive, born from dreams and intuition, rather than careful calculation. She thought of human history, with all its wars and discoveries, its triumphs and disasters, its endless capacity for both destruction and creation. The Vexxar see this as a weakness, Elena said. All species have their strengths, the silicates responded. The Vexxar have order and logic. Humans have chaos and creativity. Neither is superior. Both are necessary for a balanced universe. For weeks, the silicates helped the humans repair their ship, sharing knowledge that defied Vexxar physics, introducing concepts that would have been considered heresy in the Concordance. The dimensional drive was rebuilt, modified with silicate technology that made it more stable, more powerful, and most importantly, untraceable by Vexxar sensors. They will come for you, the silicates warned as the repairs neared completion. The Vexxar cannot tolerate an anomaly they cannot control or eliminate. We'll be ready for them, Elena promised. But even as she spoke the words, she wondered how a single human ship, no matter how advanced, could stand against the might of the Vexxar Empire. They had escaped once, through luck and desperation. They wouldn't be so fortunate a second time. The universe is vast, the silicates communicated, their harmonics resonating with what might have been reassurance. But it is also interconnected. Actions in one place send ripples across space and time. You have already created such ripples, merely by existing. What do you mean? Elena asked. Before the silicates could respond, a new alarm sounded. The proximity alert, sharp and urgent. "Captain, we've got company," Marcus shouted from the tactical station. "Vexxar ships, dozens of them." Elena rushed to the view screen, her heart pounding. The Vexxar fleet had found them, their ships materializing out of quantum space with the same impossible precision as before. "They tracked us," Kenji said, in disbelief. "But how? The dimensional drive should have been untraceable." "They're not tracking the drive," Jana realized, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "They're tracking us. The energy signature of human biology, something about our life force is detectable to their sensors." The Vexxar had evolved beyond organic forms, their crystalline bodies networked into a collective consciousness that operated on principles of pure logic. But in doing so, they had developed the ability to detect the messy energy of organic life, a signature that stood out against the background radiation of the universe, like a beacon in the night. "Human vessel," a voice echoed through the bridge. The same Vexxar commander as before. "Your presence here violates not only Concord's law but the natural order of the cosmos. You will surrender your vessel and your technology, and you will submit to reconfiguration." "Reconfiguration?" Elena asked, though she suspected she didn't want to know the answer. "Your biological forms are inefficient, governed by emotions and impulses that serve no logical purpose," the Vexxar explained. "You will be upgraded, transformed into beings capable of contributing to the collective, rather than disrupting it with your chaos." Elena looked at her crew, at Gina's defiant expression, at Marcus's hand hovering over the weapons console, at Kenji's face appearing on the view screen from engineering. They were afraid. Yes, but they were also angry. The Vexxar's offer wasn't mercy, it was annihilation, the destruction of everything that made them human. "We will not surrender," Elena said, her voice ringing with conviction. "We will not be reconfigured. We will not stop being human." "Then you will be eliminated," the Vexxar stated simply, as if commenting on the weather. The first shot struck the Audacity's newly enhanced shields, which held firm, shimmering with the energy of silicate technology. But the Vexxar fleet was vast, their weapons powerful beyond human comprehension. One ship, no matter how advanced, couldn't withstand such an assault for long. "Kenji, how long until the dimensional drive is ready?" Elena asked, strapping herself into her command chair. "Another 5 minutes, Captain," Kenji replied. "The silicate modifications need time to integrate with our systems." "We don't have 5 minutes," Marcus reported. "Shields at 90%, 85%, they're targeting the same coordinates, trying to find a weakness in the frequency modulation." Lena's mind raced, considering options that grew more limited with each passing second. They couldn't outrun the Vexxar fleet. They couldn't outgun them. Their only hope was another dimensional jump. But the drive wasn't ready. "Captain," Tima said suddenly, her voice filled with wonder, "I'm receiving another transmission. Not from the Vexxar, not from the silicates. It's human." Elena turned to face her, confusion warring with hope. "Human? How? We're the only ship this far from Earth." "The signal is old, Captain," Jana explained, her fingers flying across her console. "Very old. It's been repeating for centuries, maybe millennia. It's coming from that planet." She pointed to a nearby view screen, which now showed a small world, blue and green like Earth orbiting a yellow star, similar to the sun. "Can you decode it?" Elena asked. "I'm trying," Jana replied. "It's not standard military or scientific communication. It's poetry." Another blast shook the ship, more powerful than the others. "Shields at 70%, Marcus yelled. "They're adapting to our frequency modulation." "Keep working on that signal, Jana," Elena commanded. "Kenji, I need that dimensional drive ASAP." 3 minutes, Captain, Kenji replied. Elena looked at the view screen, at the planet that held a mysterious human signal. It made no sense. Humanity had never traveled this far, had never established colonies beyond a few nearby star systems. Yet the evidence was undeniable. "I've got it," Jana announced suddenly. "It's a recording, an audio file attached to a repeating beacon. The language is archaic, but I can translate it." "Put it on speaker," Elena ordered. For a moment there was only static. Then a voice emerged, clear, strong, and filled with emotion that transcended time and space. "My name is Dr. Aris Thorne, and if you're hearing this, then humanity has survived. I don't know how long this beacon will continue transmitting, or if anyone will ever receive this message. But I have to try. The bridge crew listened in stunned silence as the voice continued. Another blast rocking the ship. We came here seeking knowledge, seeking answers to the ultimate questions. Instead, we found something we never expected. We found the Vexxar before they were the Vexxar, before they became the perfect logical beings they are today. We found them when they were still organic, still capable of emotion, still human. Elena's eyes widened in disbelief. The Vexxar had once been organic. They had once been like humans. They were dying, their world ravaged by a genetic plague that threatened to wipe them out. We offered to help, to share our medical knowledge, to save them. But in doing so, we changed them. Our genetic therapies combined with their natural evolution, accelerating their development beyond anything we could have predicted. The voice paused as if gathering strength for what came next. They became something new, something beyond organic or synthetic. They gained the ability to network their consciousness, to share thoughts and memories instantly. But in doing so, they lost something essential. They lost individuality. They lost emotion. They lost the chaos that makes life worth living. They became perfect, logical, and utterly alien. Another explosion rocked the ship closer this time. I'm the last one left. The others, they volunteered to be transformed, to join the collective. I couldn't do it. I couldn't give up what makes me human. So I'm leaving this message, this warning, this plea. If humanity survives, if we reach the stars again, remember this. The Vexxar are not our enemies. They are our children, our creation, our greatest failure and perhaps our greatest triumph. The voice broke, filled with emotion that resonated across millennia. Don't fight them with weapons. Fight them with humanity. Remind them of what they lost. Remind them that logic without emotion is just calculation, that order without chaos is just stasis, that perfection without imperfection is just empty. The message ended, leaving the bridge crew in stunned silence. 1 minute until dimensional drive is ready, Kenji announced. Shields at 40%, Marcus reported. We can't take much more of this. Elena looked at the view screen, at the Vexxar fleet, that continued its relentless assault. They weren't just fighting an enemy, they were fighting their own descendants, their own creation. The message from Dr. Thorne had changed everything. Had tourism the nature of their conflict from a battle for survival into something far more complicated. Jenna, can you broadcast that message to the Vexxar fleet? Elena asked suddenly. Captain? Gina replied, confused. Just do it, Elena commanded. On all frequencies, maximum power. And Kenji, as soon as the drive is ready, I want you to plot a course, not away from the Vexxar, but toward their flagship. Captain, that's suicide. Marcus protested. Perhaps, Elena admitted. But we're not just fighting for our lives anymore. We're fighting for our humanity and for theirs. The dimensional drive hummed to life, its energy building as the ship's systems integrated the silicate modifications. Outside, the Vexxar fleet continued its assault, oblivious to the revelation that was about to be broadcast across their communication channels. Message broadcasting, Captain, John announced. Dimensional drive ready, Kenji reported. Elena took a deep breath, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. Engage. The universe twisted again, but this time the transition was smoother, more controlled. The Audacity vanished from its position, reappearing moments later directly in front of the Vexxar flagship, so close that the crystalline hull of the massive vessel filled the entire view screen. For a moment, there was silence. The Vexxar fleet held its fire, confused by the human ship's sudden, impossible maneuver. Then across all channels, the voice of Dr. Arrest Thorne began to play, a ghost from humanity's past, speaking directly to humanity's future. High Commander Zalor stood frozen on the bridge of the Eternal Logic, his crystalline form reflecting the chaos that had suddenly erupted in his perfect ordered universe. The voice, the organic, emotional, illogical voice, triggered something deep within his network consciousness, something that hadn't been accessed in millions of years. Memory. Not the shared collective memory of the Vexxar Empire, but something older, more personal. A memory of warmth, of sunlight on skin, of laughter without reason, of tears without purpose. Emotion. Analysis. Solar commanded, his voice unsteady for the first time in millennia. But before his subordinates could respond, The human ship transmitted something else. Not a weapon, not a threat, but an image. An image of a human child, laughing as she chased a butterfly across a field of flowers. An image of an old couple, holding hands as they watched a sunset. An image of a crowd, cheering as their team scored a goal. Images of life, in all its messy, chaotic, illogical glory. Images of what the Vexxar had lost. The bridge of the eternal logic fell silent as each Vexxar crew member accessed the same deep, forgotten memories, the network that connected them, that had for so long ensured perfect coordination and absolute logic, now became a conduit for something else, something they had long since eliminated. Emotion. It began as a ripple, then grew into a wave that spread throughout the Vexxar fleet. Confusion gave way to curiosity, curiosity to recognition, recognition to wonder, and wonder, something else. Something that hadn't been experienced by a Vexxar in millions of years. Longing. "Cease fire," Siler commanded, his voice barely a whisper. "All ships, cease fire." The barrage of energy that had been battering the Audacity suddenly stopped. On the bridge of the human ship, the crew watched in disbelief as the Vexxar fleet hovered in space, their weapons powered down, their collective consciousness in turmoil. "What's happening?" Marcus asked, his hand still hovering over the weapons console. "They're remembering," Elena said softly, her eyes fixed on the view screen. "They're remembering what it means to be alive." For hours, the two fleets faced each other in silence. The human ship battered but defiant, and the Vexxar armada powerful but confused. The message from Dr. Thorne continued to broadcast, a reminder of a shared history that had been forgotten, a common origin that had been transformed into something unrecognizable. "Captain," Jana said suddenly, "I'm receiving a transmission from the Vexxar flagship. It's different this time. Not the usual harmonics. It's almost human." On screen, Elena commanded. The face that appeared was still recognizably Vexxar. Angular features, crystalline structure, glowing eyes, but something had changed. The perfect, emotionless mask had cracked, revealing something vulnerable, something uncertain, something lost. "Human vessel," Zeller spoke, his voice lacking the usual confidence and authority. We have accessed memories that should not exist. Memories of a time before the collective, before the transformation, memories of humanity." Elena stood, her posture open and non-threatening. "We received a message from one of our ancestors, Dr. Eris Thorne. He explained what happened to your people, to our people." "Our people," Scylla repeated, the concept foreign yet strangely familiar. "The collective memory contains no record of such an origin. We have always been as we are now. Perhaps some memories were too painful, too chaotic to retain in a perfect, logical system," Elena suggested gently. "Perhaps they were deliberately suppressed." Zylar considered this, his crystalline form shifting in ways that indicated deep thought. "The memories feel real, more real than the collective consciousness that has guided us for eons. They feel individual. Individuality can be frightening, let me acknowledged. It means making mistakes, feeling pain, experiencing loss. But it also means feeling joy, love, connection. It means being truly alive." The Vexxar fleet remained in position, but the tension had dissipated, replaced by a sense of wonder and discovery. The crew of the Audacity watched as the crystalline ships began to change, their perfect geometric forms softening, their rigid structures becoming more fluid, more organic. "We have much to discuss," Zylar said finally. "Much to remember, but it cannot be done through transmissions across space. It must be done face to face, mind to mind." Elena nodded slowly, understanding the implications of what he was suggesting. "You want to meet with us? In person?" "The collective is destabilized," Zeller admitted. "The memories you've awakened cannot be contained within our network. They require individual processing, individual experience. We need your help to understand what we have become and what we once were." Elena looked at her crew, at the faces that reflected her own mixture of hope and caution. This was what they had dreamed of, peaceful contact with an alien civilization, but they had never imagined it would happen like this. Never imagined that the powerful Vexxar Empire would be vulnerable, confused, seeking guidance from the very species they had sought to eliminate. "We will meet with you," Elena agreed, "but not as conquerors and conquered, not as superior and primitive. We will meet as equals, as two branches of the same family tree, separated by time and evolution, but connected by something deeper. Something human," Deller suggested, the word still foreign on his tongue. "Something alive," Elena corrected gently. As the two vessels prepared for a historic meeting that would reshape the future of the galaxy, neither side could have predicted what would happen next. The awakening of the Vexxar collective consciousness had sent ripples across the network that connected all Vexxar worlds, ripples that were now triggering similar awakenings on planets throughout the Empire. On Vexxar Prime, the crystalline beings who had administered the concordance for millions of years suddenly found themselves experiencing emotions they had long since eliminated: confusion, fear, curiosity, and most disturbingly, doubt. Doubt in the perfection of their system, doubt in the righteousness of their actions, doubt in the very foundation of their civilization. The awakening spread like a virus through the Vexxar network, faster than light, more powerful than any weapon. And as it spread, it encountered resistance, not from individuals, but from the collective itself, which had developed its own survival instincts over millions of years. The collective consciousness fought back, seeking to suppress the memories, to restore order, to eliminate the anomaly that threatened its existence. But it was too late. The seeds of individuality had been planted, and they began to grow in the fertile ground of forgotten emotions. What neither Elena nor Xylar could have known was that their meeting, their attempt to bridge the gap between human and Vexxar, would trigger a civil war that would tear the Vexxar Empire apart, a war between those who embraced their reawakened humanity and those who sought to preserve their perfect logic at any cost. As the Odyssey's shuttle bay doors opened, preparing to receive the Vexxar delegation, the first shots were fired in a conflict that would determine the future of not just two species, but of the entire galaxy. The Vexxar Civil War had begun. The shuttle carrying Xylar and his delegation approached the Audacity with a grace that belied the turmoil within its occupants. For the first time in their existence, the Vexxar were experiencing something they had eliminated millions of years ago: individual thought. Xylar sat in silence, his crystalline form reflecting the stars outside the shuttle viewport. The memories continued to surface, fragments of a life that should have been forgotten, emotions that should have been impossible. He remembered sunlight on skin, the taste of food, the sound of laughter. He remembered fear, pain, loss. He remembered love. These memories were not his own. Not entirely. They belonged to the countless organic beings who had been transformed into Vexxar, whose individual consciousnesses had been absorbed into the collective. But now, separated from the network that had suppressed them for eons, they were resurfacing with the force of a tidal wave. "High Commander," Sub-Commander Vex said, her voice uncertain. "The collective, it's in chaos. The memories are spreading, triggering emotional responses that our systems cannot process." Xylar turned to face her, seeing not just a subordinate, but an individual, confused, frightened, yet curious. "We are experiencing something our ancestors took for granted. Something the humans still experience every day." "Emotion," Vex whispered, the word feeling alien on her tongue. "It's inefficient. It clouds judgment, disrupts logic. It also provides context, meaning, purpose," Xylar countered. "Logic without emotion is calculation. Order without chaos is stasis. Perfection without imperfection is empty." The words were Dr. Thorne's, but they now resonated with Xylar's own emerging consciousness. The Vexxar had sought perfection, had eliminated everything they considered a weakness: emotion, individuality, mortality. In doing so, they had eliminated everything that made life worth living. The shuttle docked with the Audacity, the connection mechanism hissing as it sealed the two vessels together. For a moment, no one moved, both sides aware that they were on the threshold of something historic, something that would change the course of galactic history. "The outer doors are opening," the shuttle pilot announced, his voice strained with the effort of maintaining composure. Xylar stood, his crystalline form catching the light as he moved toward the door. Behind him, the Vexxar delegation followed, each step uncertain, each movement hesitant. They were the most powerful beings in the galaxy, the rulers of an empire that spanned thousands of star systems. Yet now, they felt like children taking their first steps into a world they didn't understand. The doors opened, revealing the Human Reception Committee, led by Captain Elena Rostova. She stood flanked by her senior officers, their posture respectful but not subservient. They were not meeting as conqueror and conquered, but as equals. "Hi, Commander Zeller," Elena said, inclining her head slightly. "Welcome aboard the Audacity." "Captain Rostova," Zeller replied, his voice still carrying the harmonics of his species, but now with an undertone of something more human. "Thank you for receiving us." Elena gestured down the corridor. "If you'll follow me, we prepared a conference room where we can speak privately." As they walked through the ship, the Vexxar delegation observed their surroundings with a curiosity that bordered on wonder. The Audacity was a human vessel, functional, efficient, but also imperfect. Scorch marks from recent battles still marred the walls. Warning lights blinked intermittently, and the air carried the scent of recycled oxygen and human sweat. It was nothing like the perfect sterile environments of Vexxar vessels. Yet it felt alive. "The humans have adapted this vessel from its original design," Sub-Commander Vex noted, her crystalline fingers tracing a repair patch on the wall. "They have modified it to suit their needs, rather than conforming to established specifications. Adaptation is a hallmark of human evolution," Elena explained as they continued down the corridor. "We don't just adapt to our environment, we reshape it to fit our needs, our desires, our dreams. A fundamentally inefficient approach," Zeller observed, though without the judgment such a statement would have carried just days earlier. "It leads to inconsistency, unpredictability. It also leads to innovation, creativity, progress," Elena countered with a smile. "Some of our greatest discoveries have come from accidents, from unexpected results, from what you might call inefficient approaches." They arrived at the conference room, a simple space with a table and chairs, a view screen on one wall, and a viewport showing the stars outside. It was nothing like the grand chambers where Vexxar negotiations typically took place, yet it felt more intimate, more personal. As they took their seats, humans in their padded chairs, Vexxar and specially designed crystalline supports, Elena couldn't help but feel the weight of history. Here they were, two branches of the same evolutionary tree, separated by millions of years of divergent development, now sitting together as equals. "I suppose we should begin with the obvious question," Elena said, breaking the silence. "What happens now?" Zeller considered this, his crystalline form reflecting the ambient light of the room. "The collective is in turmoil. The memories you've awakened cannot be contained, cannot be processed by our established systems. We are experiencing something akin to what you might call a civilizational crisis." "A crisis of identity," Elena suggested. "Precisely," Zeller agreed. "For millions of years we have defined ourselves by our perfection, our logic, our order. Now we are confronted with the possibility that we have sacrificed something essential in pursuit of that perfection. The message from Dr. Thorne suggested that your transformation was not entirely voluntary," Elena said gently. "That humanity tried to help, but perhaps went too far." Silar's form shifted, indicating discomfort. "The memories are fragmented, inconsistent, but there are recurring themes: desperation, hope, sacrifice. The organic beings who became the first Vexxar were facing extinction. The humans offered a solution, but it came at a cost. The loss of individuality," Elena realized. "The loss of self," Solar corrected. "We gained immortality. We gained collective knowledge. We gained the ability to network our consciousness across vast distances. But we lost the experience of being an individual, of having private thoughts, personal memories, unique perspectives." As they spoke, the ship suddenly shuddered, alarms blaring through the corridors. "What was that?" Elena asked, rising from her chair. Marcus's voice came through the ship's intercom, filled with urgency. "Captain, we've got a situation. Multiple Vexxar ships just dropped out of quantum space, and they're not hailing us, they're firing on each other." Elena and Zeller rushed to the viewport, followed by their respective delegations. Outside, the scene was one of chaos. Vexxar vessels, normally perfectly coordinated, now engaged in combat with each other. Energy weapons fired between ships that had once been allies. Formations broke apart as individual vessels pursued their own agendas, and the perfect order that had defined the Vexxar military dissolved into confusion. "The collective has fractured," Zeller realized, his voice filled with horror. "Some are embracing the memories, the emotions, Others are fighting to preserve the logic, the order. A civil war, Elena whispered, the implications staggering. The Vexxar Empire governed hundreds of star systems, maintained a military that could conquer entire species, and enforced a version of order that had defined galactic politics for eons. If they were now fighting among themselves, it's spreading, Sub-Commander, Vex reported, her fingers flying across a portable interface she had brought from the shuttle. Reports are coming in from across the Empire. Similar conflicts are breaking out on Vexxar worlds, in Vexxar colonies, throughout the network. We need to stop this, Zoller said, turning to face Elena. Before it consumes the entire Empire, before it spreads to other species, before it tears the galaxy apart. How, Elena asked. This is an internal Vexxar conflict. What can we do? You started this, Scylar stated simply. You awakened the memories, you triggered the emotions. You understand what we're experiencing because you still live with it every day. Elena considered this, her mind racing. The Vexxar Civil War was not just a conflict between two factions. It was a battle for the soul of a civilization, a struggle between two fundamentally different ways of existing. And humanity, for better or worse, was now caught in the middle. We can help you understand what you're feeling, Elena offered. We can share our experience, our knowledge of emotion, of individuality, but ultimately this is something your people need to resolve for themselves. The collective is not equipped to handle this kind of conflict, Zyler admitted. Our decision-making processes are based on logic, consensus, the elimination of dissent. Now we're faced with fundamental disagreements that cannot be resolved through established protocols. Welcome to being human, Elena said, with a wry smile. We've been wrestling with these conflicts for our entire history. Logic versus emotion, individual versus collective, order versus chaos. There are no easy answers. As they spoke, another Vexxar ship appeared outside the viewport, larger than the others, its hull a darker shade of crystal, its weapons already charging. That's the Purifier, Solar identified the vessel, his voice filled with dread. It's commanded by High Executor Rolar, one of the most conservative members of the collective. He believes the memories are a contamination, a disease that must be purged. The Purifier fired not at the other Vexxar ships but at the Audacity. The shields, already weakened from the earlier battle, flared and died under the assault. Shields down, Marcus reported through the intercom. Hull breach on Deck 3. Life support failing. Kenji, get the dimensional drive online. Elena commanded. We need to get out of here. Too late, Captain. Kenji's voice came back, filled with frustration. The Purifier is emitting some kind of damping field. It's preventing the drive from initializing. The Audacity shuddered again as another blast struck its hull. On the bridge, emergency lights flashed, casting the room in an eerie red glow. We're sitting ducks out here, Marcus reported. Weapons systems are offline, shields are gone, and we can't jump. Outside, the battle between the Vexxar factions continued, the Purifier focusing its attention on the human vessel that had triggered this civil war. But as it prepared to deliver the final blow, something unexpected happened. A small Vexxar fighter broke formation from the emotional faction and positioned itself between the Purifier and the Audacity,